The first thing my father noticed was the empty chair beside me, the chair where my lawyer should have been. The moment he saw it, he smiled. The second he smiled, I knew exactly what he was thinking. He thought he'd already won. My name is Benjamin Carter. At the time, I was 33 years old, and I was about to sue the most powerful man I'd ever known, my father. Richard Carter built one of the largest commercial construction companies in Massachusetts. By the time I was born, he was already wealthy. By the time I graduated high school, he was rich enough that people treated him differently. By the time I turned 30, people treated him like he was untouchable. Unfortunately for him, I knew exactly where he wasn't. Growing up, my father believed money solved everything. Problems, mistakes, relationships, especially relationships. If he missed a birthday, there was a gift. If he missed Christmas, there was a larger gift. If he missed an entire year of being a father, there was usually a car. My mother left when I was 16. She took nothing, no business, no property, no money, just me. For years I believed she was the problem. Then I got older. Then I started paying attention. The truth usually arrives late, but it arrives. After college, I refused to work for my father's company. That decision became our first real war. According to him, I was ungrateful. According to me, I wanted my own life. For nearly 10 years, we barely spoke. Then my mother got sick, very sick. Cancer, the kind that changes every conversation. The kind that forces families together or tears them apart. My father showed up exactly twice. Once for a hospital visit, once for the funeral. At the funeral, he cried. Everyone thought it was grief. I thought so too, at first. 3 months later, I discovered the truth. The property where my mother lived had been sold, not by her, not by me, by a company. A company owned through 3 different holding corporations. Guess who controlled them? Richard Carter. My father had spent years quietly acquiring properties around my mother's neighborhood, one by one, piece by piece. The final property he needed was hers, the house she refused to sell, the house she'd lived in for 20 years. The house that suddenly became valuable when developers discovered commercial opportunities nearby. After she died, paperwork appeared, fast, suspiciously fast. The property transferred, permits appeared, construction plans followed. Something felt wrong, very wrong, so I started digging. The deeper I dug, the worse it became. Signatures didn't match. Documents contained discrepancies. Dates didn't align, nothing obvious, nothing dramatic, just enough irregularities to make a lawyer interested. A very interested lawyer. That's when I learned something important. The case wasn't about the house. It was about fraud, potential fraud. And suddenly my father's confidence made more sense. Because wealthy people often assume ordinary people won't fight back, especially family. For nearly a year, the lawsuit dragged on, motion after motion. Delay after delay. Every tactic money could buy. Then trial day arrived. The courthouse buzzed with activity. My father arrived with 3 attorneys, 3. Apparently one wasn't enough. The moment he saw me sitting alone, he laughed, actually laughed. Then he leaned toward me. Couldn't afford one? The irony was incredible because the exact opposite was true. I could afford one, I just didn't need one. The judge entered, everyone stood, then something unexpected happened. The judge looked directly at me, paused and smiled. Mr. Carter. The room froze. My father stopped smiling immediately because judges don't usually greet random people, especially not by name. The judge continued. How is Professor Wilson these days? I laughed. Still impossible to impress, Your Honor. The courtroom chuckled. My father looked completely confused. What he didn't know was that 10 years earlier, before entering business consulting, I had spent 3 years teaching legal ethics at a university. The judge had attended guest lectures. We weren't friends, we weren't close, but we knew each other, and more importantly, he knew my reputation. My father had assumed I was walking into court unprepared. He was wrong, very wrong. Because while he hired lawyers, I hired experts, forensic accountants, document analysts, property specialists, former regulators, people whose entire careers involved finding things hidden in paperwork. The first 2 days were uneventful. Then the experts testified, one after another, every inconsistency, every discrepancy, every irregularity, presented calmly, methodically, relentlessly. By the end of day 3, my father's lead attorney looked exhausted. By day 4, he looked worried. By day 5, he stopped making eye contact. Then came the email nobody expected. Including me, a former executive from my father's company came forward, voluntarily. Apparently retirement had improved his conscience. He provided records, internal communications, meeting notes, and one devastating statement. A statement confirming concerns that had existed for years. Suddenly the case changed. The courtroom atmosphere changed with it. For the first time, my father looked nervous, actually nervous. The man who had spent his entire life controlling every room he entered was losing control. The verdict arrived 6 weeks later. I didn't receive everything I wanted. Life rarely works that way, but I received something more important. The transfers were reversed. The property issue was corrected. The court issued findings that permanently damaged several business practices tied to the case. Financially, my father survived. Reputationally, not so much. For the first time in decades, people stopped assuming he was always right. A year later, I received a phone call. My father, I almost didn't answer. Almost. When I finally picked up, neither of us spoke for several seconds. Then he said something I'd never heard before. I underestimated you. Not an apology, not quite, but probably the closest thing Richard Carter had ever given anyone. I looked out the window of my office, thought about the lawsuit, the funeral, the house, the years. Then I replied, "You didn't underestimate me." Silence. You just assumed money was enough. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he quietly laughed. Not the arrogant laugh from the courtroom, a different one. The kind people make when they finally understand something. Before hanging up, he asked one last question. "Would your mother be proud of you?" I smiled. Because for the first time in years, I knew the answer. She already was, and just like that, the conversation ended. The funny thing is, my father thought the most dangerous thing in that courtroom was a lawyer. It wasn't. It was someone who had finally stopped being afraid of him.